Betrayal doesn't start with shouting. It starts with a label maker. Family photos, receipts, important. My mother believed that if she named a box, its contents would obey. I learned early that some boxes lie. My name is Emily Larson, 33. I left this house 11 years ago with 2 suitcases and a promise to become someone they couldn't edit. Last week, my father's heart misfired, and I came back to a living room that smelled like lemon oil and old applause. He survived. The doctors said mild, as if anything about watching your father turn gray could be mild, but the tremor in his hands hasn't stopped. Neither has the quiet between my mother and me. Helen moves through rooms like she's rehearsing a verdict. Her hair is immaculate. Her smiles are receipts. She met me at the door with a kiss to the air. "You look tired," she said, which in our language means "don't make work for me." My brother, Ethan, arrived 15 minutes later in a suit that made him look like a decision someone rich already made. He hugged me like a politician, both arms, no weight, and took the head of the table without asking. Lily trailed him, warm and watchful, the kind of woman who remembers everyone's dietary restrictions and what those restrictions cost. We had soup because you can swallow grief if it's hot. Dad's spoon clinked against the bowl, like a metronome trying to find a pulse. "I'm fine," he said, which means save your panic for later. Helen set a stack of papers beside his elbow. Insurance forms, follow-ups, a neatly tabbed binder titled Transition. She did not look at me when she slid a consent form toward Ethan. "It's better if your brother handles the signatures," she said, casual as weather. "Why?" I asked. "Proximity," she said. "Stability." Words that sound like compliments until you realize they're locks. "I live 3 hours away, not on Mars," I said. Ethan gave me his peacemaker grin. It's just until Dad's back at the office. Less chaos." Chaos, I thought, is when the person who raised you turns into a committee. I slept in my old room, with the glow-in-the-dark stars still freckling the ceiling, the kind that never learned when to quit. At 2 a.m., the house went very still. Old houses have 3 kinds of silence, the kind that rests, the kind that waits, and the kind that hides. I followed the third to Dad's study. The cabinet I wasn't allowed to open as a kid had a new lock and the same keyhole. My father has always trusted metal more than people. I tried the old trick, press and lift, and the drawer gave half an inch, as if remembering my hands. Inside, labeled folders, a ledger, and a small tin box marked spare. Spare what? Spare patience? Spare lives? The ledger wasn't numbers. It was names. Vendors, board members, dates next to donations to my mother's charity gala. And next to some of those dates, a faint pencil mark like a private weather report. H. I flipped pages until the pattern appeared. Asterisk, asterisk, H, asterisk, asterisk, beside days when our family bakery's account bled more than usual, when cash moved from a savings Helen swore didn't exist. The bakery had kept this house standing through recessions and storms. Who needs a wolf when you have a withdrawal? I heard steps in the hall and shut the drawer with a softness that felt like an apology. Lily stood in the doorway in socks, her hair looped into the kind of bun you make when you're thinking. "Couldn't sleep either?" she whispered. "Just looking," I said. She glanced at the cabinet, then at me. "Your mom asked me to help with the catering invoices. There's a lot to reconcile." She hesitated. "Emily, she asked me not to involve you. Said you'd make it emotional." I laughed into my sleeve. How reckless of me to have feelings about my own family. Lily stepped closer. "Ethan thinks he's protecting you. Your mother thinks she's protecting the family. Neither asked what you want." "What I want is a sentence with my name in it that doesn't end in later," I said. "What I want is a reason she looks at Ethan like a son and at me like a leak." Lily's face softened. "You're not a leak." a beat. But there is one. In the morning, Helen handed me a list as if assigning chores could cure resentment. Florist at 10. Chair delivery at noon. Don't move the piano. She air-kissed my temple and added, too lightly, legal will send over updated trust paperwork for your father. Be available to witness. Witness what? Formality, she said. Gregory's shares, Ethan's stewardship, the house in my name for tax efficiency. Tax efficiency, I repeated, like a new flavor of gum that promises to fix your teeth. Lily watched me from the doorway, a question in her eyes. Dad shuffled in behind Helen and looked smaller in daylight. Pumpkin, he said, the nickname he only used when he needed me to be 8. Let your mother run her plays. It's simpler. Simple for whom? I asked. His mouth worked, then quit. He adjusted his watch band like time might be more cooperative than I am. At the bakery, the morning rush felt thinner, regulars speaking in condolences and pastry orders. Mrs. Klein pressed a bag of poppy seed rolls into my hands and whispered, "Your mother would be so proud. Pride is a currency the dead spend generously." I smiled until my cheeks went numb. Behind the counter, the office door was locked. I found the key where it's always been, third hook, under the orange twine. Inside, the air was warm and stale, paper and sugar and something else. Helen had reorganized. She reorganizes like some people breathe. But the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet stuck halfway, as if it had swallowed something too big. I wiggled it free. A thick envelope fell against my shin. No label. Inside, a copy of a short-term loan agreement from a private lender with an address on Harbor Avenue. Interest like a dare, collateral like a threat. On the signature line, my mother's name, nearly perfect, and beneath it, in blue ink, a witness signature. Lily Carter. The room tilted. I pictured Lily in this chair, watching my mother sign something shaped like salvation and sharpened like a blade. Lily's handwriting is clean, patient. I've seen it on grocery lists and thank you notes. I would know it in a snowstorm. My phone buzzed. "Ethan, Mom needs you back for the lawyer." A second message. Asterisk, don't bring up the bakery. It complicates things. Asterisk, a third from a number I didn't recognize. Asterisk, Heritage Bank. 2 p.m., bring the safe deposit key. Asterisk, I didn't know we had one. Of course we did. I searched the bakery office where habit hides, behind calendars, under ledgers taped to the underside of drawers. Nothing. Then I remembered the label maker. In the supply closet, a box read batter tips. Inside, piping tips, a broken timer, and a brass key wrapped in wax paper. The tag said simply for 11. I placed the key in my palm. It was heavier than metal should be. I thought of my mother's hands, flour-dusted, precise. I thought of the faint H in Dad's ledger. I thought of Lily's name under my mother's. How witnessing can be both kindness and complicity. At noon, I returned to find a lawyer at our dining table, tie the color of a bruise, briefcase open like a mouth. Helen sat straight-backed. Ethan relaxed, Lily pouring water like it were peace. Dad signed where he was told. The lawyer slid a signature page toward me. "Witness," he said pleasantly. I looked at the line. What am I witnessing? I asked. Reallocation of voting rights, he said. Streamline governance. And if I decline? I said. Helen's smile did not move. Don't make this adversarial. Emily. I picked up the pen and felt its weight. Then I set it down. I'll meet you at Heritage at 2, I said, to no one and everyone, and I'll sign what I understand. Ethan's jaw tightened. Helen's eyes cooled by 2 degrees. Lily's knuckles went white around the pitcher. I left before anyone could edit my sentence. On the porch, my phone buzzed again. If you bring the key alone, we can make this simple. Another bubble, seconds later. If you don't, harbor moves forward, no name, no need. I slid the brass key into my pocket, felt the edges bite the fabric, and told myself that sometimes the only way to open a door is to be the person they don't expect to walk through it. I drove to Heritage Bank with the kind of calm people mistake for agreement. The lobby smelled like polished wood and old money. A receptionist with a voice like a locked drawer led me to a small room with beige walls and no clock. That's how banks tell you time belongs to them. A man in a charcoal suit entered, carrying a clipboard and a smile that didn't touch his eyes. "Miss Larson, I'm Mr. Alden. You brought the key." I held it up, but didn't hand it over. "I want to know what's in the box before anyone else touches it." He hesitated. "Typically, these visits are scheduled with the account holders present. Your mother." "My name is on the bakery account. I co-owned it with my father until last year." He blinked, recalibrating. "This box is tied to that account. Your access is valid. Technically. Technically is the kind of word you use right before you lie or confess." We went downstairs into the vault, where silence sounds expensive. Box 411 slid out of the wall with a reluctant scrape. He placed it on the table and stepped back. "No cameras in this room," he said. "Take your time." When the lid opened, the smell hit me first: paper, cedar, and a hint of something that didn't belong. Smoke. Inside were folders wrapped in ribbon the color of dried blood. Letters, receipts, and a photograph. I expected my parents' wedding photo or something staged for sentiment. Instead, I saw Helen and Gregory in our bakery, 20 years younger, standing beside a woman I didn't recognize. She wore an apron dusted with flour and a smile like she owned sunlight. On the back of the photo, my father's handwriting. Marla, June 1998. I'd heard that name once in an argument my parents had when they thought we were asleep. Helen's voice, sharp as a knife. "We buried that year Gregory. Don't dig." I was 10 and thought burying meant funerals. Under the photo was a contract. A loan signed by Marla Jensen to help Larson and Son Bakery expand to a second location. The signatures were hers and my father's. No mention of my mother. No mention of Ethan, because in 1998 I was 8 and Ethan was 11, and the bakery only became and Son when my mother rebranded everything he touched. Tucked into the stack was a letter in my father's handwriting, never sent. Asterisk Marla, I'm sorry. The money kept us alive, but Helen won't let your name stay on anything. She says it's for appearance, but I know what I owe you. If Emily ever asks, tell her I didn't forget who saved us. Asterisk. My throat tightened. My name in his apology to someone else. My mother erasing another woman's signature the way she scrubbed emotions off my face when I was young. Beneath the letter were bank statements, small withdrawals over years, each marked MJ, the same initials from the photograph. Payments, hush money, or gratitude, and then the thing that turned my stomach cold. A notarized document titled Contingency Transfer of Property with my father's signature, but where the second line for spouse should have been, it was blank. Instead, the beneficiary line read, Emily Larson, successor and trustee. I stared so long the room seemed to tilt. My mother had spent years convincing me I had no rightful place in the family business, no stake worth protecting. Yet here was a document naming me the sole inheritor of the bakery property and assets if something happened to him. Why hadn't he told me? Or had he, and she erased that too? The elevator doors hissed open before I'd fully closed the box. Helen's heels hit the vault floor like punctuation. Ethan followed, jaw clenched, phone still in hand. Lily, behind them, avoided my eyes. Emily, my mother said, voice clipped, You were told to wait for us before accessing anything. I rested my hand on the box lid. Funny, I didn't hear that over the part where you erased my name from everything else. Ethan raised his hands like a referee. Let's not do this here. Where should we do it? I asked. In a conference room you've already signed me out of. Helen didn't look at the box. She looked at the banker. We'll need to review the contents together. Privately. My attorney is on the way. Mr. Alden glanced between us, then at me. Ms. Larson has legal access by standing order. She is not the primary, Helen snapped. No, I said, but I'm the one named trustee if Dad can't act. Wonder why you didn't mention that. Silence. Lily's gaze flickered. Guilt or warning, I couldn't tell. Ethan stepped forward. What do you want, Em? I almost laughed. You took my decision-making. You took my access. You planned to take the building and call it tax strategy. But what I want? I slid the photo of Marla across the table. I want the truth about this woman. And why Dad left me to find her name in a vault instead of a family album. Helen's face went still, not surprised, not scared, calculated. She lifted the photo, studied it, then set it down as though it were a receipt. She was a problem. Now she's gone. Gone how? I asked. Her eyes met mine. Don't dig up graves you can't afford to lie in. Then she closed the box, as if sealing a wound. And for the first time, I realized my mother didn't fear secrets. She curated them, and I had just stolen one back. I didn't sleep that night, not in any way that counted. I sat at the dining table in my apartment with the photo of Marla laid out like evidence. The city outside my window moved on without me. Sirens, headlights, strangers with easier stories. I turned the picture over again and again, trying to memorize the curve of her smile and the way my father stood beside her, not guilty, not ashamed. Familiar. At 2 a.m., I found myself searching her name. Marla Jensen. The records were thin. Sewing shop owner once, a junior pastry chef for a year, no marriage registered, no obituary I could trust. Just a phone, number tied to an address 2 towns over. I didn't call. I wasn't ready to hear the voice my parents erased. By morning, Helen had already moved. A lawyer emailed me updated partnership paperwork. In other words, a legal muzzle. The attached document tried to sever any trustee authority I held, citing mental strain and compromised judgment. I actually laughed. My mother didn't wait for fire. She built exits before anyone saw smoke. Ethan sent a one-line text. Asterisk, we need to talk. Without lawyers. Asterisk, no apology, no context. The kind of message people use when they already wrote the ending. Instead of answering, I went to the bakery, the original one. The only place Dad still showed up even when his body couldn't. The bell over the door chimed. And for a second, I was 16 again, covered in flour and asking him if dreams expired like yeast. The lights were dimmer than I remembered. The counters too clean. The smell of cinnamon felt like a memory someone sprayed into the air. In the back office, Dad sat hunched over the old ledger, pen in his shaky hand. Emily, he said without looking up. He always knew my footsteps. You shouldn't be here. That line's getting old, I said, closing the door behind me. I found the box. His pen froze, then dropped. The sound was small, but it cracked something in the room. Your mother, he began, isn't the one I'm asking. I pulled out the photograph and placed it gently on the desk. His hand hovered above it, trembling, not with fear, with recognition. You weren't supposed to see that. You wrote my name in a letter to her. I said, you trusted a stranger with the truth before your own daughter. He closed his eyes. She wasn't a stranger. I waited. He rubbed his thumb over Marla's face, the way people do when they're touching a loss. She worked here, he said quietly, before the expansion, before your mother rebranded everything. We were drowning in debt. Your brother was sick that winter. I didn't see any way out. So she gave you money. He nodded slowly. She believed in the business. Not for profit, for us. Helen said accepting it made us look weak. She called it charity. I called it survival. And then she erased her. I said, he didn't deny it. Your mother keeps what threatens her small. And me, I asked, was I small or just inconvenient? He reached for my hand, but stopped halfway, as if uncertain of permission. When I named you trustee, I tried to give you ground she couldn't pull away. And then never told me. His shoulders sagged. I thought I'd have time. That was the cruelest line anyone ever said to me. Time. As though silence was a savings account and not a theft. Before I could respond, the door opened. Ethan stood there, pale, jaw tight. Dad, he said, ignoring me, Mom needs you at the lawyer's office. Now, Dad looked between us, torn in a way I'd never seen. Ethan didn't look at the photo, but I saw the flicker when he noticed it. You shouldn't dig into the past, he muttered. It doesn't pay out. I stepped closer to him. Funny, that's what people say right before a body is found. His eyes hardened. If you think you're the victim here, you have no idea what you're starting. Dad stood, unsteady. Ethan took his arm, guiding him toward the door. I grabbed the photograph before they could. As they walked away, Dad paused. Just a second. Enough to say without saying, keep going. I watched them leave. And for the first time, I understood the real inheritance I'd been given: silence, rewritten history, and a name someone tried to bury under someone else's. So I did the only thing they hadn't prepared for. I got in my car and drove to the address tied to Marla Jensen. If she was alive, I'd find her. If she was gone, I'd find who wasn't ready for me to ask why. And this time, I wouldn't knock quietly. The house wasn't what I expected. Not a rundown apartment or a nursing home. Just a modest blue bungalow with a porch swing and a wind chime that sounded like glass breathing. The kind of place you drive past without wondering who lives there, because nothing about it looks like a missing chapter. I sat in my car for a full minute watching the curtains. A porch light was on, even though it was barely past noon. Someone was home, or someone didn't like darkness. When I finally rang the doorbell, footsteps shuffled, slow, unhurried. The door opened halfway. A woman stood there, maybe late 50s, hair pulled back like someone who works with her hands even when she isn't working. Her eyes were what struck me, not because they were familiar, but because they weren't startled. You look just like him, she said. I hadn't given my name. I hadn't said a word. Marla, I managed. She opened the door wider. Come in before the neighbors start guessing. The living room smelled like lemon polish and bread dough. On the wall, above a small gas fireplace, hung a framed newspaper clipping, * Larson and Son Bakery, wins local business Grant Star. The photo underneath showed my father and brother smiling in front of the original storefront. Marla stood next to them, partly cropped out as if history decided she took too much space. You kept that? I asked. She poured tea like she'd been expecting me. I wasn't sure if you'd come before Helen finished the job. I sat on the edge of the sofa. What was the job? She didn't answer directly. Your father wanted to tell you years ago. Your mother threatened to take Ethan and disappear if he did. He believed her. My mother doesn't disappear, I said. She erases other people instead. Marla nodded, almost proud. You have his way of seeing the truth and her way of naming it. I didn't drink the tea. Did you and my father? No, She said quickly, but not defensively. We were friends, partners, before your mother decided business couldn't mix with loyalty. I invested in the bakery because I believed in it. Helen wanted the money without the memory. So she pushed you out. She paid me off in installments. Marla said, not because I asked, because she panicked. She thought I wanted ownership. I just wanted him to survive the year. I pulled the photograph from my bag and placed it on the coffee table. Why didn't you fight? She traced the image with one finger. I did, but not the way Helen did. She plays loud. I play long. I leaned back. Long enough for what? For someone else to notice. She looked at me with an expression I hadn't earned yet. Your father left that box for you. Not Ethan. Not her. You were always the one meant to find it. A bitter laugh escaped me. He never told me I was anything but a spare tire. Maybe, she said, or maybe he knew telling you too early would get you cut out entirely. Your mother doesn't fight fair. Ich sagte her. What else aren't you saying? She hesitated, then stood and disappeared into the hallway. When she returned, she held a thin folder bound with twine. This was supposed to go to your father the week before he had his first collapse. I never got the chance to give it to him. I untied the twine. Inside were invoices, permits, and signed agreements dated just months before the expansion went through. Only 2 signatures appeared again and again. Mine and my father's. I froze. But I was 12. Marla nodded. Your name was added later. Someone forged it, then replaced the original copies. A chill crawled up my spine. Helen. She needed Ethan to be the sole heir. Your signature would have made you co-owner when you turned 18. So she scrubbed you out years before you even knew what the business was. I looked at the papers again. Every stroke of ink felt like a theft committed in my handwriting. You kept all this, I said, voice barely there. You'll need it, she replied, and you'll need the rest. Rest? She gave me a look that felt like a door unlocking. There's another box. Not at the bank. I didn't blink. Where? She didn't smile, but something shifted behind her eyes. Approval, maybe, at the bakery, under the floorboards, in the first storage room. He trusted you would figure it out before she did. I stood. Come with me. She shook her head. I'm not the one she's afraid of. I hesitated. She will come after you, if. I've been gone a long time. Emily, I'm not on her map anymore. I tucked the folder into my bag and started toward the door, but her voice stopped me. When you open that box, she said, remember this. People don't bury the truth because it's dead. They bury it because it's alive. I didn't know how to respond, so I just nodded and left. The drive back to town felt shorter than it should have. The roads looked different now, not like routes, but like cracks. I parked behind the bakery and used the back entrance. The smell of yeast and coffee grounds wrapped around me like a familiar lie. The storage room hadn't changed in a decade. Metal shelves lined the walls, loaded with paper goods and cleaning supplies. The floor was scuffed, uneven. I knelt and ran my hand along the baseboards until I felt it one board looser than the rest. Footsteps sounded behind me. I didn't turn. I knew you'd come here, my mother said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. You should have left it buried. Emily. I pried the board up with my fingernails, ignoring the sting. And you, I said without looking back, should have known I was the wrong daughter to bet against. The board lifted with a dull crack, and the box stared back at both of us. My mother didn't step forward right away. She stood behind me, composed in that calculating way she'd perfected over a lifetime, chin lifted, arms loose at her sides, as though nothing could possibly be out of her control. "Before you open that," she said softly, "think carefully about what you plan to do with whatever you find. You can't unsee it, and you can't control what it destroys." I rested my fingers on the lid of the box. "You're assuming it destroys me." She let out the faintest scoff. "You didn't consider where this ends. You never do." "Funny," I said. "I think that every time I remember how you erased me before I even knew what I was losing." She didn't flinch, but her silence said enough. I pulled the box out and set it on a folded tarp. It wasn't metal, wooden, dark-stained, old. The hinges creaked when I lifted the lid. Inside were 3 stacks of documents tied with butcher's string, a small leather notebook, and a flash drive taped to the inside. My father's handwriting covered the first page of the notebook. "Asterisk if you're opening this without me." Then she got to me before I could fix what I failed to protect. "I did what I could to leave you the tools. Trust your anger, but use your mind first. Asterisk." My throat tightened. I reached for the first stack of papers: deeds, original articles of incorporation, payroll records, the first loan agreement. All of them bore my father's signature, clean and unaltered. Some bore mine, my real signature as a child, shaky and backward, from the day he first taught me how to write my name at the bakery counter. He kept the originals. My mother forged the duplicates. Helen spoke from behind me, her tone eerily even. "You don't understand what your father was protecting you from." I turned just enough to meet her eyes. "You keep saying that like it was your job to decide what I can survive." Her jaw clenched, the first crack in her composure. I lifted the flash drive, twirling it between my fingers. "What's on here?" Her eyes flicked to it and away. "Files that don't matter anymore." "Then you won't mind if I read them." I slipped it into my pocket and went back to the notebook. Tucked in the back cover was an envelope brittle with age. My name written in my father's hand again. I didn't open it, not yet. Heavy footsteps approached from the hall before my mother could speak again. "Ethan." He entered with the impatience of someone who believes everything can still be redirected. "Mom," he said, ignoring me, "the lawyer's waiting. We have to get ahead of." He froze when he saw the box. His expression shifted from irritation to alarm to anger. "You brought her here?" My mother didn't blink. "She's not leaving with it." I stood then, holding the notebook against my chest. "You don't get to decide that anymore." Ethan ran a hand through his hair. "You think you can take this to court? You think anyone will believe?" "I don't need them to believe me." I opened the notebook and placed the photo of Marla and my father on top. "I need them to believe him." My mother moved closer. "Stop pretending this is righteous. You're not saving his legacy. You're dismantling your own future." I laughed once, quiet. "My future was dismantled the minute you wrote me out of it." Ethan stepped toward me. "Dad left the business to Mom and me. You walked away years ago." "No," I said. "You walked over me. There's a difference." His eyes narrowed. "What do you want, Em? Money? Control? You want your name on the door again? Fine. We'll add it. But you're not blowing this up over something that doesn't matter anymore." "Doesn't matter?" I repeated, voice low. "Dad wrote my name on contracts before you even knew how to count inventory." Helen crossed her arms. "He was sentimental, not strategic." I met her gaze. "Then why did he leave insurance policies in my name and trustee rights assigned to me in the event he became incapacitated?" "That landed." Ethan blinked. "You don't have." I held up the flash drive. His signatures, his notes, contracts you replaced, bank statements tied to hush funds, payroll ledgers with your name inserted where hers used to be. I have the originals, and I promise you, I know exactly who to give them to." Silence settled like dust. Then my mother said quietly, You're not going to ruin us. I closed the box gently. I'm not here to ruin you. I'm here to take back what you stole. She swallowed, and for the first time in my life, she looked unsure. You don't understand what will happen, she said. Neither do you, I replied. I lifted the box and walked toward the door. Ethan didn't stop me. He didn't move. Helen stood perfectly still, except for her hands, just barely trembling at her sides. As I stepped into the hallway, she called after me, voice low and sharp as broken glass. Emily. I paused but didn't turn. You can destroy us, she said. But when you do, make sure you're ready to live with what you learn. I looked back at her then. I already am. I left the bakery with the box, the photograph, the notebook, the flash drive, and a name I no longer intended to let them bury. The door closed behind me, but something else finally opened. They'd spent years deciding who I wasn't. Now they'd find out exactly who I am. And I wasn't done.